Hi, shalom friends. I remember growing up, believe it or not. I still remember. And I realized that one of the most painful parts of growing up was to reconcile. I want people to acknowledge me as an individual, but yet I did not want to stand out as a sore thumb. And this is something which people, as they develop maturity, find a way to navigate where they're not considered a freak or outstanding. They're part of the group, they're cool, they're together with the crowd, but at the same time, they're not lost in the crowd. Which opens up a discussion for me. When you look at the Chumash, you look at the Bible, and we read the first 6 days of creation, we find a very interesting a position that God takes. First, he creates the whole, and then he separates from the whole into individuals. So in the beginning, God created light, and then he separates light from darkness. He continues, he creates waters, and then he separates the waters, heaven and earth. He creates the globe, and then separates it into dry land and the seas. He creates luminaries in the sky, and then he delegates, you stay on the side of day, the sun, and you will be the night, and so on and so forth. And actually the culmination of creation is really, really odd. He creates one human with male and female aspects, and then he separates them into two. So it's fascinating, at least to me, this idea of creating first everything as a homogeneous one, and then distinguishing it into details. And of course, the goal always comes back to being one. So day and night is one day. And a world which has seas and dry land is a world that can be inhabited. And of course, a male and a female separate can produce a oneness between them, which is the child. So perhaps what we should investigate, what is this trying to tell us? Parallel to this is the Jewish tradition of beginning a new week with with a prayer called Havdalah, separation. So it's Saturday night. We had a wonderful 24 or 26-hour day of holiness. And we take a cup of wine and we say, blessed are you, God, who makes a distinction, a separation between Shabbat and the weekday, and between the Jewish people and the nations of the world, between the holy and the non-holy. Shouldn't we maybe have a more holistic way of beginning the week? Like, thank you, God, we're all one. There's harmony, there's unity, there's oneness. Instead, we actually have a ceremony to mark a separation between one form of energy and another, between one form of divine expression of his will to another expression of God's will, when we actually know they're both coming from the same God. There are two different ways to look at separation. So the sages of old pointed out that when you look in the biblical text, on the second day, it does not say, and God saw it was good. Every other day, it says, and God saw it was good. But when it comes to the separation of waters into what we call, in English, though in all honesty, I'm not sure what it means, firmament, there's upper waters and lower waters, earthly waters or physical waters and spiritual waters. It's brought down in the Midrash that the earthly waters complained. Why should water, we were created as one, Why should we be inferior? We're on the ground, or we are in the physical sense, in contrast to our brothers who are now before the heavenly throne. And the Midrash poetically gives an answer. Don't worry, salt will be extracted from the water. Salt will be put into the holy temple, into the service of the altar. So you'll also be before me. But we see clearly that day number 2, where the separation of one form of water to another form of water brought to bad feelings. I don't know if the word would be jealousy, but the separation emphasized how separate they are. Of course, later on in the biblical story, we have 2 brothers. And again, because Cain and Abel are so different, instead of emphasizing the oneness between them, we are brothers, we have the same biological origin, a father and a mother, instead they separated in 2 different ways that led to that sad occurrence of the first murder. Yet, when we take a look at day number 6, and God separates man from woman, woman from man, this brings the opposite, attraction. Not only attraction, but a strong desire to merge. What is the difference between these 2 separations? Here we have water being separated, and there's a complaint. Why are they in heaven, we on earth? And over here, we have just the opposite. I admire you the way you are, and I want to cleave to you. I want to get close to you. I'm attracted to you. And the way I presented it is actually the answer. We could look at separation as a form of, you're better than me, you're different than me, or we could look at it as follows: you have qualities and assets that I don't have, but I have qualities and potential that you don't have. Now that we acknowledge our differences, let's work together so we both profit, where our differences become sources of strength that benefits both of us. There are many, many such examples. I'll take a very apparent, a very simple one. There are different instruments. There's a flute, and there's a harp, and there's a drum, etc. If there's only flutes or only violins, you will only hear a certain form of music. They make vibrations, we hear it, it's very pleasant. But if you put it in an orchestra, suddenly the sweetness, maybe, of certain instruments merge beautifully into different sounds. But they merge. The difference between an orchestra and noise is each instrument is pulling itself without any regard for the other. So the flute wants to be the flute, and the drum wants to be the drum, and whoever does it higher or is more persistent will be more dominant, and that's called a cacophony of noise. But if they work together and they complement one another, the individual instrument is not minimized. On the contrary, it's actually emphasized, because it adds that sweetness or that beauty or that resonance that the other instrument cannot. It has been said, if the answer to everything would be yes, then the yes would be meaningless. It's only when we're capable of saying no that the yes becomes something of significance. It's almost in a certain way of 2 people that date, and they've dated many, and they decide on each other. And you would say, well, if you really loved me, or if we were true soulmates, you should have found me right away. The reality is Because I said no to so many potentials, the yes and the affirmation that I'm saying to you is far more meaningful. So, to summarize, is separation, identification, good or bad? It depends how you look at it. If you could identify and separate and do it in a manner where you acknowledge the other in their uniqueness, but the same way they are unique, they look at you as you are unique, then separation will actually become the highest form of unification. When Jewish people realize that they're separate from other nations, it does not cause anti-Semitism. What it actually does is it enhances both. We appreciate the non-Jewish nation or the Gentile nations because they have talents and potentials and are capable of creating a world of beauty and harmony. And they look at the Jewish nation as a unique nation, separate, because they are blessed with the ability to spiritualize the beautiful world that they are building. If each one merges, what happens is the uniqueness of each, not only do they disappear, but what happens is the goodness that could have been created are not. We hope and pray for a world of unity. We don't hope and pray for a world of uniform where we all wear the same clothes, we all look exactly alike, where the climate and the food is exactly the same. No, that's not our dream. Our dream is every nation, every people, every race will exist in their uniqueness, and we will appreciate each other's strengths. And by doing so, we will truly create harmony between man, between man and God, and the most beautiful music exquisitely will be created.